The Great Reset is nothing more than just a rebranding of the New World Order. This is biblical shit. This is shit you see in the Bible. But now they just rebranded it to be the Great Reset. Insane. And so I'm sitting here, I'm watching it happen in real time. I'm like, they're not even trying to hide it from us anymore. Oh my God, it blows my mind, dude. So then I wake up the next morning and Facebook, gone. They deleted me completely. They were censoring me the very next day. The First Amendment is dead, you guys. The government has the technology to spread propaganda and misinformation like we've never seen in history. This is legit the Great Reset. It's happening right now. We deserve to know what's really going on. This is the Uncensored Truth. What's up, guys? It's Jeremy with the Uncensored Truth, the podcast designed to free your minds from the grips of the mainstream media by giving you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the uncensored truth. Like always, if this is your first time watching this video or listening to this podcast, please subscribe, whether it be on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Facebook, whatever. If this is your first time, please click subscribe and turn on them notifications. It helps out a bunch. I would really, really, really appreciate it. Today, I'm going to talk about the Great Reset. Now, you've probably already heard of the Great Reset at one point in time, whether it be from like a website you came across, saw it online somewhere, maybe somebody talking about it on Facebook, YouTube, whatever, or maybe you've heard it from a crazy conspiracy theorist like myself. A lot of us have talked about the Great Reset. I know I've talked about it on past episodes, and so I wanted to create an actual full episode where I can just talk about the Great Reset, let you know what it is, who's running it, what their plans are, and what I think it means for the future of the world. And before I actually get into what the Great Reset is, I need to talk about who is behind the Great Reset. Now, although there's a lot of people behind the Great Reset, but there is one person who is really the mastermind, and that is Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab is the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is an independent international organization that claims to be dedicated to solving all the world's problems by bringing together some 3,000 world leaders, political leaders, celebrities, just elite, extremely wealthy people, most of them unelected. They bring them together once a year at the end of January in a place called Davos. It's in the mountains of Switzerland, just like a secret resort in Switzerland where they meet up once a year, talk about the world's problems and how they are going to fix them. And it probably sounds a little familiar to you because some of you may be familiar with like the Bilderberg meeting that's been going on for years. Like people believe that George Bush had been showing up to that, and they're just like a super secretive meeting of the world's elite trying to figure out how to shape the world's future. And they're a lot more open than the Bilderberg meetings were because of the fact that they are implementing a lot of the shit they talk about right now. Every single day something happens that's in line with what the Great Reset is designed to accomplish. So essentially it's a not so super secret meeting amongst the world's elite, and they come together and try to figure out how to shape the world's future. And that's generally what happens. You get somebody who has a little taste of political power, and for some reason after that they believe that they have a right to tell the world what it can and can't do. The World Economic Forum has been meeting for, I believe, 50 years or so. I don't know. But in May of 2020, the World Economic Forum had its 50th annual meeting, and they had actually announced that this meeting was going to be dedicated to talking about the Great Reset, how they are going to shape the world's future because of this pandemic. The founder, Klaus Schwab, actually wrote a book that you can see on the website. It's called COVID-19, The Great Reset. Some of the things that the Great Reset is going to focus on is restructuring income and wealth inequality, climate change, and then just somehow solving the world debt, our national debt, whatever. they want to reimagine the monetary system, whether it be from like creating a digital dollar, just getting rid of the US dollar, creating a digital dollar, or just a redistribution of wealth, just changing where all the money in the world goes and who gets it. Or it's like a radical freaking reimagining of the whole world's economy. Some world leaders, including Schwab, have actually said that the pandemic has opened a door of opportunity that is actually going to allow them to push through these changes, which is crazy because if the pandemic itself is actually creating this opportunity, then why have they been working on this for years? They've been talking about this for a long time. You can see that this isn't something new simply because COVID-19 happened. No, this is something they've been working on for a long time. And now that COVID-19 happened, they have an opportunity to push this through. I want to read to you what Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, what he had to say about the Great Reset. And this was during the United Nations meeting in September. I just kind of want to give you an idea of what he thinks about the Great Reset. And these are his words, man. Trudeau said, "This is a chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change." So he's talking about the pre-pandemic efforts. So this is something they had been working on since before the pandemic. That's completely obvious in what he's saying there. Schwab himself says, "A new and improved world can emerge from the pandemic if nations act jointly and quickly." So let's just think about those words for a second, because this is kind of terrifying. This is actually going to give you an idea as to where you've probably heard this whole mindset before, the whole Great Reset. It's nothing new. It's something that's been worked on for decades. And I'm sure you've heard of it, just in a different term, different words. So let's read this one more time for you. "A new and improved world can emerge from the pandemic if nations act jointly and quickly." So a new and improved world can emerge from the pandemic if nations act jointly and quickly. In other words, orderly. So new world order. That's odd. That's not terrifying in any way whatsoever, but whatever. The Great Reset is nothing more than just a rebranding of the New World Order. This is biblical shit. This is shit you see in the Bible. But now they just rebranded it to be the Great Reset. You might also have heard Joe Biden's version of it, Build Back Better. But regardless, this is the New World Order. This is just rebranded, because if they come out and say, "Hey, we've got a plan for the New World Order," you're going to be like, "Nah, that's some bullshit. I saw that in the Bible. This is some nasty shit. I don't want anything to do with it." So what they did is they rebranded it. They call it something else, and you'll just be like, "You know what? This pandemic has been horrible. Let's do it. Sounds good. I'm on board." It's a nice trick, guys. Let's see what else he had to say. "To avoid such catastrophe without delay, we need to set in motion the Great Reset. This is not a nice-to-have thing, but an absolute necessity. Every country, from the United States to China, must participate, and every industry, from oil to gas to tech, must be transformed. In short, we need a great reset of capitalism." That sounds terrifying. And in fact, this guy's voice is very scary. He is legitimate. Like, he's been compared to like a James Bond villain. He looks like a bigger Dr. Evil. This guy legit, and he's got this accent that is just fucking cringeworthy. But this guy legit is terrifying. He seems like a supervillain, and I know it probably sounds like a conspiracy theory, but a wise person once said, "It's not a conspiracy theory if they're telling you exactly what they're doing." And that's what they are doing. Like, at one point, this Great Reset was considered a conspiracy theory. Like, people are like, "Ah, you psychos, that's not going to happen." And now they're talking about it. They're actually telling us about it. And they're starting to implement shit every single day. I'm not kidding you. Like everything that's happening in the news right now, all the things that you're seeing happen to the world, they're happening because or for the Great Reset. Some conspiracy theorists are actually saying that the whole pandemic was faked in order to push through this Great Reset. And the meeting in Davos, the one of the main topics that they were talking about is how the pandemic has created a window of opportunity so that they can do this. They self-admittingly say that this probably would not be possible if it weren't for this pandemic. I'm pretty sure you've heard this phrase before, never let a good crisis go to waste. That's exactly what they're talking about when they say that. This pandemic has created an opportunity, and they're seizing this moment to push through their agenda that they've been working on for decades. Now, in some instances, people are probably wondering, well, how are these guys going to successfully push this through when COVID is actually kind of winding down? It's almost done, and they need this crisis to push through these radical changes. How are they going to do that if COVID's about done? Well, they've already figured out their new crisis, and it's nothing new. It's something they've been talking about for a long time. They just haven't been so crazy about it lately, and that's climate change. Climate change is the next boogeyman, the next huge thing. And to prove to you that that's what's going to happen, watch the news. Very soon here, you're going to see a shift from COVID and police systemic racism to climate change, and probably still police systemic racism, because of course the systemic racism thing is going to stick around, because you can't fuck with that. You cannot. The minute you deny or try to disprove the fact that there is systemic racism everywhere, you will actually be labeled a racist. You will be called a racist by the mainstream media, by everybody on social media, by everybody, and they'll try to destroy your life. It's already somewhat happened to me, but that's what happens. The only thing worse is being called a climate change denier or a science denier, and that's coming. And I don't know if you know or have heard of Project Veritas. These are guys, like legit reporters and investigative journalists who have gone undercover and actually released a video recently where they had people undercover talking to some of the top people at CNN, and they were legitimately talking about how they used the pandemic to manipulate the way people felt. They put it in the news. They actually had that ticker on CNN because they knew that number there all the time was terrifying. It was scaring people, and it was forcing them to watch more than they normally would. And they actually got rid of it at one point, and then they were like, we need to put that back on because when it's not there, people aren't as engaged. And so they have admitted that they are propaganda. They have admitted that they intentionally reported on certain things to get Donald Trump out of office. And then they also admitted that they were reporting certain stories that went with the Black Lives Matter agenda, that went with the pandemic agenda. And then they've also admitted that now that the pandemic is winding down, they are going to shift to climate change. So you're going to see the mainstream media talking about climate change like crazy. And MSNBC just mirrors what CNN reports. So you're going to see them just follow suit. It's going to be nauseating, because that's all you're going to see on Facebook. Any type of social media, you're going to see it on CNN, MSNBC. All the news stations are going to start reporting on climate change and how it's horrible, and how if we don't do something right now to fix it, it will kill you. And that's going to be their second door that opens so that they can push through the Great Reset. I don't know if you know who Prince Charles is, the Prince of Wales, but here's what he had to say about climate change and its relation to the Great Reset. The threat of climate change has been more gradual than COVID-19, but its devastating reality for many people and their livelihoods around the world, and its ever greater potential to disrupt, surpasses even that of COVID-19. So he's saying that climate change is way more important than COVID-19. It's going to be way more deadly, way more serious. And he's also there, one of the main people, one of the main talking heads there at the Davos meetings, talking with the Great Reset. I want to read to you something else about their plans and who's going to be at the 2021 Davos meeting at the World Economic Forum. Its 2021 Davos Summit will include thousands of members of the global Shapers community, youth activists located in 400 cities across the planet. The Global Shapers program was involved in the widespread climate strikes of 2019, and more than 1,300 have already been trained by the Climate Reality Project. Now, the Climate Reality Project is a highly influential, well-funded climate activist organization run by former Vice President Al Gore. He just so happens to serve on the World Economic Forum's Board of Trustees. So Al Gore, who has been pushing climate change for the longest time, also is on the Board of Trustees for the World Economic Forum. So here's what they're going to try and do with this whole Great Reset. The main thing they're going to focus on is just wiping out the whole monetary system and creating a new dollar, which is probably going to be a digital dollar, like a cryptocurrency, something like that, which makes sense because cryptocurrency is soaring right now. Like, they're getting ready for that. This is front and center. It never used to be, but it is now. The other thing that they're going to focus on is wealth inequality. They're trying to redistribute the world's wealth. Now, here's what we have essentially. We've got the 10%, or some say the 3%, or the 1%. I like to say like the 5%. That's about right. The world's top 5%, they're the wealthiest people in the world. And then you have like the middle class, and then you have lower class, the people who are below or at the poverty level. Now, what they're going to do when they say they want to redistribute wealth, they're going to push everybody into poverty except for the top 5%. Those people are going to sit up above and just watch the money circulate directly up to them. They're going to get extremely rich, kind of like what you've seen during this pandemic. The richest people in the world have doubled, sometimes tripled their wealth just in this short period of time where we've had this pandemic, while regular people like you and I, business owners, people, small business owners who had to shut their business down, their wealth is gone. Their lives are destroyed, and this is part of it. This is like it's, some of it's not going to be a willing transfer. It's going to be something that you're forced to do, like during these lockdowns in some of these cities where businesses have been forced to shut down. People have lost their jobs. Like, their redistribution of wealth has already started, essentially. A lot of these freaking elite have absolutely been there, and they have absolutely made a ton of money during this pandemic, whereas normal people like you and I have probably lost money. I've been fortunate because where I live, we haven't had to shut down a lot of businesses. But you've got to go to the World Economic Forum's website and check out The Great Reset. You can read the book, do all of it. I encourage that you guys do it. This is stuff that's widely available. They're giving it to you so that you can research it. I encourage people to do it because if you do, you're going to see, they say things like, you will have nothing, you will own nothing, and you will love it. Essentially, everything will be paid. Debt. I mean, they're going to get rid of debt, which people are going to love. They're going to be like, wow, this is great. This is a great idea. No more debt. But you're not going to have anything. No, I take that back. You will have stuff. It's going to be provided to you by the government. Essentially, this is going to be government coming in and taking over everything. Your house, the vehicle you may or may not drive, depending on if there's autonomous vehicles at this point, but everything that's provided to you will be provided to you by the government, but they will be in control of all of it. As long as you line up and do exactly what they say, you will get these things. They will give you the bare necessities, and it will be provided to you, which in some instances is more than what some people have. But think about the people who have been working and building their wealth for generations, and that's going to go away for the most part. If they're not like already the elite, they're going to be a part of this, but for the most part, these people who have these family built businesses, ranches, a mom and pop store, whatever, something that's been in the family for a while, this shit's going to go away. You're going to lose all of it. You're not going to have anything. You're not going to own anything, and you're going to love it. These are the words from the World Economic Forum, from Klaus Schwab himself. Basically, we're going to have more government, and people like you and I will have less control over what actually happens and what happens with the decisions that are made to the world. Now, according to history, the only way that something this drastic, a change this drastic, will be successful is if, one, people have more say and more freedom in how they are allowed to spend their own money, and two, people become more involved in the global decision-making process, which this is never, ever going to happen. It's actually going to take away your involvement. It's almost going to eliminate it altogether. It just won't happen. At least that's not what the Great Reset is designed to do. Now, let me give you an analogy as to what the Great Reset is, because I love using analogies. It helps people understand shit, especially myself. Let's just say the world is like a computer. And when you first get your computer, it's good, it's going, everything works great, but as you put more information into it and more data into your computer, it begins to slow down a little bit, doesn't work as well as it used to. So once it gets to the point where it's just not working at all, you can do what's called a factory reset. Bring it back to its original condition. Usually what happens on your computer is it gets something like a virus or some type of spyware or something that just gets it to the point where it's just not functioning anymore. It definitely needs something to happen in order to get it to function properly again. At that point, you're going to have to do like a factory reset or something like that. A great reset. And that's essentially what's happening. The world is not functioning properly anymore because it is overloaded with data. Data being you and I. People. There's far too many people in this world. We are causing the world to just break down and not function like it used to. According to these elites, according to the people who have enough money to just restructure the whole world. They think that the world is overpopulated. There's about 7 billion people in this world, and they think that's too much. Now, that isn't something that they're actually talking about during the World Economic Forum, during the Great Reset, during these meetings. I mean, they probably are amongst themselves, but they're not talking about it openly in like the Great Reset book or any of these forums that they're holding online that you and I can actually watch and see and learn from. They're not talking about depopulation, but the New World Order did. That was like one of the main things that they focused on, was dropping the world's population to like 500 million, I believe. It was some ridiculous number, which is just insane. You're wiping out a majority of the world's population to get to that. But these are talking points from the New World Order. But that's essentially what it is. It's like a computer that's running extremely slow and just not functioning very well because there's just too much going on inside, so it needs to be reset. And that's what has happened in the world. I mean, we essentially have this virus. We've got systemic racism. We've got climate change. All of these crises that are going to just essentially bring the world to the point where it just can't function anymore, so it needs a great reset. They're going to make it seem like it's very needed, like we absolutely have to have this great reset. But look at it, research, you guys, find out what this great reset actually is going to do to the world, what it's going to do to you and I, and you will see that it is not a good idea. This cannot happen. We cannot allow this to happen. I don't think that we're going to have a choice. There's nothing we can really do about it, but you do need to be aware that this is coming. It's going to happen, and the signs will be evident. I mean, think about it. When the news starts reporting on climate change again, like crazy, to the point where you're like, I wish they would just talk about something else, but again, they can't. When there's an agenda that they have to push forward, they need to put it out there on all outlets, social media, the mainstream media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of that. You're going to see it everywhere. It's going to be crazy, and that's how they push this stuff, man. They've got to reset the computer so that it'll function well again, and in order to do that, they have to plant a virus and other crises so that we are open to a reset, essentially, I guess. Does that make sense to you guys? I hope it does, man. I'm trying to explain this in a way where you can understand like what the Great Reset is actually going to do. But like I said, I encourage you guys to go to the World Economic Forum website and just read into the Great Reset, because you're going to see a lot of things that they plan and a lot of things that they're wanting to make happen. And on the surface, it's probably going to look like a pretty decent idea, but it's not. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Ready Player One. Like in there, they've got the IOI or whatever, that company that comes in and they buy out your debt. And then you're basically a slave to them. You have to work for them until you pay back what debt they took over. And they did it without you asking them to do it. They just do it, and then you're basically their slave. You have to work for IOI until your debt is essentially paid off, but because of interest and whatnot, you'll never ever be able to pay it off. So it's probably going to be something similar to that. I know that's a movie and that's not like real life shit, but it's essentially going to be a lot like what they're talking about when they say they're going to wipe out the debt. They're not going to wipe out the debt. They're going to absorb your debt, and then they're going to absorb you and turn you into a laborer for the World Economic Forum for the Great Reset for the New World Order. That's terrifying shit, man. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. That's why we have these mask mandates and these lockdowns still. Joe Biden walks out, tells people they still have to wear a mask even when they're vaccinated, although, according to science and according to studies, they say that you have like next to like 1 in a million chance of dying from COVID after you get the vaccine. So if you get the vaccine and it drastically decreases your chances of dying of COVID, then why do you still have to wear a mask? Why do you still have to be worried about COVID? It's because he can't let this crisis die, because he needs to seamlessly shift into the climate change crisis, and he's just not ready for it yet. Not only that, but this dude thinks that he is saving the world. Like he's taking credit for these vaccines being out right now, which is what Donald Trump did. I mean, he's the one who put this shit into place. All that Joe Biden has done is just kind of sit back and take credit for shit. But that's why he doesn't want the crisis to die, because at some point he's going to be held accountable for how the world is right now, and he can't blame it on the pandemic or whatever. But he needs that still active, because he basically has a boogeyman to point the finger at anything that's not going well. Anyways, whatever, I'm done with it. I don't want to get into politics. I'm going to stick more to like these other topics, because of the fact that I've been getting attacked like crazy on Facebook and everything. Like this last episode that I came out with, I've gotten a lot of flack for. People are calling me racist. They're saying that I'm a piece of shit, that I'm white supremacist, whatever, white nationalist, whatever you want to call it. I am not racist in any way whatsoever. I just like to look at the facts, as opposed to just labeling everybody racist, as opposed to just calling all cops racist and saying that they're horrible. I like to look at the facts to see why this shit is happening, and it's clear why it's happening, because of the fact that the Great Reset is why everything is essentially happening right now. It's not because cops are legitimately racist. It's not because there's a pandemic out there killing millions of people. It's because there's a plan in place to change the world completely, and we need crisis to do that. Think about 9/11. Remember when 9/11 happened and people were terrified? In the name of terror, the government was allowed to pass a ton of laws, shit that they'd never be able to pass had it not been for people being terrified. I mean, the people essentially were like, yeah, the Patriot Act, spy on me 24 hours a day? Sure, why not? Just keep me safe. I don't want to die. This was terrifying. They literally saw on live TV buildings in New York blowing up, and they were just like, fuck. I say blowing up because whatever, but they saw this shit on live TV. The whole country was terrified, and then when they needed to pass some of these unconstitutional laws that spy on Americans every single day, they were just like, sure, why not, as long as it keeps us safe. That's what they're doing now. The Great Reset, some of the shit that's going to happen during this Great Reset, shit that normal people would oppose, but because of the pandemic and because of how dangerous climate change is about to be again, they're going to just let them do it. They need a crisis to be able to push these radical frickin' policies. It's nothing new. They've been working on it for decades. They're just now starting to push it through under its new rebranded label, which is The Great Reset. All right, guys. Thanks for watching again. Subscribe on YouTube. The Uncensored Truth. Podcasts are Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Please subscribe if you can. Go to Facebook and subscribe. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mic Drop, Mildly Intelligent Conversations, and on Facebook. That would be hugely appreciated. And if you can kick us some dough on PayPal, it's at Truth Hero, whatever, on PayPal. But I thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. And until the next time, keep your eyes open, because there's some shit going on. See ya.